This is the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. Look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening. I'm Anthony Ellis and we start with Monday. Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed his views on the Russian-Ukraine war, saying although NATO has not been directly involved in the war between the two countries on Ukraine territory, NATO is one of the Ukraine supporters. He's expressed his view on Sunday through the postal official Facebook page. EAC News reporter Darshana Goshen has more.
The Prime Minister wrote saying NATO is not directly involved in this war, but NATO supports Ukraine. He has further stated that he understands it is not possible to use war to end war, so finding a negotiated solution is the best way to end the conflict. On Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to send a delegation to negotiate and hold talks with Russia at the Ukraine-Belarus border after Zelensky met with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Zelensky wrote on his Facebook page, the result of a conversation with Alexander Lukashenko. We have agreed that the Ukrainian delegation will meet with Russia without preconditions on the Ukraine-Belarus border on the Pripyat River. According to Zelensky, the president of Belarus has promised that all aircraft, including helicopters and missiles placed on Belarusian territory, will be inactive when the delegation arrive for the talks and then return to their respective territories. Negotiations between Ukraine and Russia were initially scheduled for Friday, but Ukraine refused to take part. In response to Ukraine's refusal, Russia stepped up its military action on Saturday. NATO allies also increased support and assistance to Ukraine on Sunday, including the provision of thousands of anti-tank weapons, hundreds of anti-aircraft missiles, and thousands of small arms and ammunition. Ukraine is also utilizing millions of euros in financial and humanitarian aid and medical supplies to help Ukrainian forces. Darshana Goshen, EAC News.
The use of nuclear bombs for war cannot end the world like World War II. This is a response that Prime Minister Hun Sen gave to the citizen who commented about the World War II on his Facebook post about the Russia-Ukraine war. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more details.
The Prime Minister wrote, if this is to be done, not just one country will be hit by a nuclear bomb, but most European countries, as well as the United States and Russia, will be hit by a nuclear bomb, and the war will not end. It could spark World War III. On Sunday, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered his troops to be ready to take command, including putting the Russian military's nuclear deterrent forces on high alert. World War II ended after the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing Japan to lay down its arms and surrender on September 2, 1945, bringing an end to the Second World War. Due to the destructive effects of nuclear weapons, many developed countries have started to produce and develop their own. The world currently has more than 10,000 nuclear weapons, owned by the United States, Russia, Britain, France, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel. Dekanin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen, the Honourable Chairman of the National Committee of the Clean City Assessment, issued a congratulatory message on the occasion of the National Day of Clean Cities under the theme Clean Cities Supporting Tourism Cambodia, accompanied by the announcement of Clean Cambodia campaign towards welcoming the SEA Games in 2023. EAC News reporter Darshana Goshen has the story.
Monday, 28th February marks the 10th National Clean City Day, celebrated under the theme Clean City Supporting the Reopening of Cambodian Tourism, and is accompanied by the announcement of the Clean Cambodia campaign to welcome the 2023 Southeast Asian Games and the ASEAN Para Games. The purpose of this campaign is to demonstrate the importance of urban cleanliness. In response to the theme of the National Clean City Day 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen has set out 4 priority tasks, the first being the implementation of set rules, including tourism safety rules and minimum operating procedures for tourism services in line with the new normal path and measures of the royal government in order to continue preventing the spread of COVID-19 and restoring confidence and trust in all production lines in the tourism sector so that they will be ready to welcome tourists and participants for the 2023 Southeast Asian Games and ASEAN Para Games. These major events require the organization of capital and provincial competition campaigns with outstanding achievements in the implementation of tourism safety rules. The second priority task concerns the contribution to the restoration of tourism by endorsing the implementation of the royal government's strategic plans, which have been set out to revive tourism through the roadmap on the plan to restore and promote tourism in and after the COVID-19 crisis, with policy measures to promote domestic tourism and movement between 2021 to 2023, and a strategic plan on the opening of vaccinated tourism. The third priority is the promotion of the honor and image of Cambodia through the influence of the 2023 Southeast Asian Games and ASEAN Para Games by launching social education campaigns and promoting the Clean Cambodia campaign. The fourth priority is to adhere to the new normal, in particular the habit of living with cleanliness and hygiene, along with the continued implementation of the royal government's set health rules and regulations to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. Cleanliness has become a key approach and necessity for promoting Cambodia's tourism recovery in and after the COVID-19 crisis, and its readiness to host the 2023 Southeast Asian Games and ASEAN Para Games. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Kep has been declared as the first mine-free province in Cambodia, while the capital city of Phnom Penh and 7 other provinces are also expected to be announced as mine-free within 2022. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the details.
Speaking at a ceremony on Monday, February 28th, the first deputy chairman of the Cambodian Mine Action and Victim Assistance Authority and representative of Prime Minister Hun Sen, Senior Minister Lee Tut, declared Kaip province as the first province to be mine-free in the country. He said that in 2021, Prime Minister Hun Sen selected the least affected Kaip province to be cleared and declared as the first demining province, with the financial support of Norway and Hungary, and chose the Cambodian Mine Action Center (CMAC) as the primary deminers. The senior minister thanked the government of Norway, the government of Hungary, and CMAC for providing financial and technical support to end the presence of landmines in Kaip. He also thanked the development partners, allies, and other national and international operators who have joined the royal government of Cambodia in providing technical, material, and financial support for humanitarian mine action in Cambodia. Cambodia has been plagued by chronic wars since the 1960s, both with landmines and unexploded ordnances, he said at the ceremony. He continued to explain that a demining village or a demining province is not a village or a province without other unexploded ordnances, such as bombs dropped from the planes, cluster munitions, and other kinds of unexploded ordnances. Kaip province is now free of mines but not yet from unexploded ordnance from the war, so he urged everyone to continue being careful and continue taking measures to solve and respond to the problem of unexploded ordnances in a timely and effective manner. According to Senior Minister Lee Tut, Cambodia plans to declare 7 more capitals and provinces to be mine-free in 2022, including Prey Veng, Kandal, Phnom Penh, Kampong Cham, Sihanoukville, Ratanakiri, and Takeo provinces. Kaip provincial governor Saung Piset said that Kaip was a hotbed of fighting between government forces and the Khmer Rouge, especially in the Phnom War region, one of the hottest areas of Cambodia. After the end of the war, some areas were left with many landmines and unexploded ordnance, resulting in 221 casualties from landmine and explosive remnants of war by 2021, of which 198 were in Nam Nak Chang Ao district and 23 were from Kaip. Additionally, 92% of these casualties were affected by landmines. Heng Ratana, the Director General of the Cambodian Mine Action Center, said that Kaip has a total of 27 minefields with a total area of more than 4 million square meters, which the unit has cleared twice since 1995. Additionally, the mines most found in this province were anti-personnel mines. The director said CMAC has deployed forces to clear the area and has kept a record of the anti-personnel landmines found in Kaip province. Both times during clearing, more than 700 anti-personnel mines and more than 600 unexploded ordnance were found. Since deciding to liberate Kaip from this threat, anti-personnel mines are now 100% cleared. So Kaip has no more record of anti-personnel mines in the national database. Thus, it becomes a mine-free province. The charge d'affaires of the Hungarian embassy in Cambodia, István Bakos, said that as a member of the Ottawa Convention, Hungary can no longer see its member to continue to suffer from landmines, so the Hungarian government is especially involved in assisting Cambodia. He said, "We cannot stand by and see landmines taking new victims, preventing families to grow crops or children to go to school safely." He continued, "Mine clearance is a prerequisite to investment in infrastructure and sustainable development, both at local and national level. Being safe from landmines would also allow us to fully benefit from the opportunities this fascinating country offers to tourism. Nikanin, EAC News.
The General Commissioner of National Police has issued a press release stating that it found the case involving the detainment of a Chinese man as a slave to sell blood to be fabricated in order the Chinese man and his party to avoid repercussions from illegally crossing the border to enter Cambodia. EAC News reporter Sray Paul Kong has more.
According to the press release issued by the General Commission of the National Police on Monday, after Specialized Unit conducted an urgent investigation into this case, including inspecting several relevant locations and identifying witnesses after a number of media outlets and social media sites reported on the arrest of Chinese national as blood-selling slave in Sihanoukville, Chinatown area, the case was found to be a fabricated lie. The unit found that it was fabricated information organized by Lia Yuanlun, a 31-year-old Chinese man who was being treated at Bithun Hospital, Cambodia, China, Phnom Penh. The three other people involved. According to the statement, Lia Yuanlun claimed to be the victim. In fact, he had been smuggled into Cambodia illegally, but due to a physical illness, he had to contact a group of people to help him find a way to get out of this predicament. Currently, Lia Yuanlun and the three people involved, including one woman, have been detained by the authority to build a case to be sent to court for legal action. The General Commission of the National Police has called on media outlets and social media sites to revise the publication of the above fabricated information to avoid confusion from the national and international public. Sray Pokong, EAC News.
The Foreign Ministers of Cambodia and Turkey have expressed their commitment to hold the third meeting of the Joint Economic Commission to seek potential action in achieving the goals of $1 billion in bilateral trade relations in line with the economic potential available in both countries. This is according to the press release issued by the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs regarding Deputy Prime Minister Prak Sokhon's official visit to the Republic of Turkey on the 26th and 7th of February. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more.
During Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhon's official visit to Turkey, the Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Kasufler confirmed Turkey's readiness to hold the third round of political consultations between the two foreign ministries in the near future. Both sides agreed to further enhance parliamentary-level cooperation through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding on Parliamentary Cooperation. The two ministers also expressed their willingness to seek and further expand good cooperation between the two countries in the fields of trade, education, training, health, textiles, transportation, construction, energy, agriculture, repair and maintenance, tourism, and also demining. According to the website Trading Economics, in 2020, the Cambodia-Turkey trade volume reached around $90 million. The commitment to promote trade between the two countries comes as Cambodia opens its embassy in Ankara, Turkey, after establishing 28 years of diplomatic relations. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Director General of Phnom Penh Water Supply, Long Naro, said Phnom Penh is the second largest city in the world in terms of maintaining low levels of clean water loss in Asia, while Singapore is number one. EAC News reporter Dashana Gutchin has more.
Speaking at a press conference on local progress of communes and subdirections of the Phnom Penh Capital Administration, Director General Long Naro said that in 1993, the water loss rate in Phnom Penh was around 72 cubic meters per 100 cubic meters, but now it has significantly dropped to only 10 cubic meters per 100 cubic meters. He said, normally the rate of water loss below 5 cubic meters is the best, and for Phnom Penh, we are currently second in Asia with the lowest loss of clean water, while Singapore is number one. He also said that the reason for the reduction in water loss was due to the state's ability to respond in a timely manner to repairs and citizen participation. At present, Phnom Penh has the capacity to produce 592,000 cubic meters of clean water in 4 factories, and in 2030, the production capacity of Phnom Penh is expected to increase to 1.8 million cubic meters. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
The Mondulkiri Provisional Administration, in cooperation with the private sector, plans to improve the gold mining areas for the tourists to visit and explore natural beauty. EAC News reporter Sray Kong has the details.
The governor of San Manoram city in Mandaluyong province, Hit Sopan, told the national radio that in order to provide more rich entertainment venue to attract tourists and increase their long-term stay in Mandaluyong, the provincial authority planned to cooperate with a private company, Renaissance Mineral Ltd, to reorganize the gold mining area in the province as a place for tourists to come and explore, relax, and see the process of gold extraction to refinement, as well as its transformation into precious jewelry. The provincial authority planned for there to also be guide tours to explain the gold mining process to tourists. Governor Hit Sopan stated that in the future, there will be a lot of job opportunity for people in that area. Renaissance Mineral Cambodia Ltd is the first company to start producing gold in Cambodia. The company officially launched its business on 21st June 2021. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has said Europe is being dragged into a Russian-Ukraine war, which is no longer a war between Russia and Ukraine, but a war between Russia and Europe. He's made this statement while speaking at an inauguration ceremony for the new section of National Road 3 held in Turkey province on Wednesday morning. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more.
The Prime Minister called Europe's entry into the Russia-Ukraine war the Europeanization of Ukrainian territory. He said that because of this, Cambodia has found it difficult to maintain its position on the war, and he urges the international community to not force Cambodia to support any one side. He said the war between Russia and Ukraine is no longer just a Russia-Ukraine war. It is a war between Russia and Europe. Through the provision of military assistance to aircrafts, it is an additional incentive for war. Prime Minister Hun Sen said he understands that this support will exacerbate the Russian war in Ukraine. He maintained his view that war could not be ended by more war. On Sunday, February 27th, NATO allies increased support and assistance to Ukraine, including thousands of anti-tank weapons, hundreds of anti-aircraft missiles, and thousands of small arms and ammunition. NATO is also providing millions of euros in financial and humanitarian aid, as well as medical supplies to help Ukrainian forces. In addition, other allies are also providing fighter jets, including warships. Nikanin, EAC News.
Citizens who attended the inauguration ceremony of National Road No. 3 from Chom Chai to Kampot province on Wednesday morning expressed their happiness for the new section of the road and described being satisfied with the new ease of the road after the construction had been completed. EAC News reporter Sri Pokong has more.
Outside a factory with more than 2,000 workers at Tramkot district in Takao province on Wednesday morning, 54-year-old Kong Mai was waiting for the presence of the Prime Minister Hun Sen with a happy face. He spoke with EAC News about the joy of participating in this morning's program, especially the official launch of the new section of National Road No. 3.
Before it took 3 hours to drive from Phnom Penh to Kampot on this road, but now the trip takes only an hour and a half. Because the road is clean and in good condition. The current road is wide, unlike the narrow as it was before when there were many traffic accidents. Now I'm very happy that the Prime Minister built this road.
61-year-old Ut Rain held a similar opinion.
Since 1998, it has been very difficult. The road had many problems and was small. It was very difficult to drive on it, and we had to find another way. To go to Kampot, it would take 3 to 4 hours at a time. But now from Kampong Spur, it takes only around an hour or more to arrive. It is very reasonable. I am happy that the Prime Minister has made the path.
Nasaron, who got up to attend the inauguration ceremony at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, shared her experience of using National Road No. 3 after the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime, saying that this road was very difficult to travel on because of its small size and damage. She said that it used to take 3 hours to travel from Takao province.
When it comes to the Pol Pot era, the road was very difficult to use. There were many breakages in the road, but now it is very easy to use.
All citizens in attendance at the inauguration ceremony expressed similar sentiment regarding the enhanced access the new section of the road allowed. Everyone appeared very satisfied with the now expanded and upgraded road, which has helped greatly in terms of improving road safety and business. The new section of National Road Number 3 extends from Phnom Penh to Kampot and is more than 134 kilometers long. The road passes through 5 capitals and provinces, including Phnom Penh, Kandal, Kampong Speu, Takao, and Kampot. It was built from October 2018 to July 2021, taking 34 months to build, with a total budget of more than $215 million, with assistance provided by the People's Republic of China, together with the national budget of the Royal Government of Cambodia. This road acts as a potential economic and tourism road for Cambodia, connecting all the way to the Sihanoukville International Seaport as well as the Cambodian-Thai border in Koh Kong Province. It is also part of the Southern Seaboard Corridor of the Greater Mekong Sub-region, connecting ASEAN Highway 123 from Thailand to Cambodia and from Cambodia to Vietnam, which will help boost trade and tourism between Cambodia and its neighboring country as well. Sripokong, EAC News.
A new office building of International Border Checkpoint in Phnom Penh City, Bang Tamatray Province, was officially inaugurated on Tuesday under the presidency of the Minister of Interior. Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng, the new building which contributed to the facilitation of cross-border travel between Cambodians and Thais and foreign tourists, as well as cross-border transport of goods between Cambodia and Thailand. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
The inauguration ceremony for the new International Border Checkpoint building in Phnom Penh was held under the presidency of the Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng, and the chairman of the National Authority for Combating Drugs and head of the Royal Government Working Group for Bantay Minche Province, General Kai Kim Yan. The construction of this building began on 27 October 2017 and was completed on 2 September 2021 with a budget of $4.2 million. Speaking at the ceremony, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng thanked the Royal Government of Thailand, particularly the Sra Kyaw Provincial Administration, for the continued good cooperation with Cambodia and for contributing to the development of Phnom Penh City, which is one of Cambodia's most important international border gates for economy and tourism. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
United Nations Secretary Antonio Guterres has told the emergency session of the 193-member General Assembly on Ukraine on Monday, 28th of February, that the idea of nuclear conflict was simply inconceivable.
The United Nations Secretary General says, although Russian strikes are reportedly largely targeting Ukrainian military facilities, the UN have credible accounts of residential buildings, critical civilian infrastructure, and other non-military targets sustaining heavy damage. This escalating violence, which is resulting in civilian death, including children, is totally unacceptable. Guterres has added, facing a tragedy for Ukraine is also a major regional crisis with potentially disastrous implications for everyone. On Sunday, Russian nuclear forces were put on high alert. It is a chilling development. The mere idea of a nuclear conflict is simply inconceivable. Nothing can justify the use of nuclear weapons. The Russia-Ukraine crisis could easily become Europe's worst humanitarian and refugee crisis in decades, with the numbers of refugees and internally displaced multiplying by the minute. It is essential that the safety and security of UN and associated personnel in Ukraine are protected in accordance with international law, and that humanitarian access to vulnerable people and communities is guaranteed, the UN Secretary General has also said.
This is a chilling development.
The world's largest cargo plane, the Ukrainian-made Antov 225 Mora, has been burnt by the Russian attack on Hamstar airport near Kiev, Ukrainian state arms manufacturer Ukroboronprom has said on Sunday.
Russian occupiers have destroyed the flagship of Ukrainian aviation, the legendary AN-225 Mria. It happened at the Antonov airfield in Hostomel near Kiev, Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs confirmed in a Facebook post. Ukrainian state arms manufacturer Ukroboronprom has said that the plane restoration would cost more than $3 billion and would take a very long time. Foreign Affairs Minister Dmytro Kuleba has said that Russia may have destroyed our Mriya, but we shall prevail. Mriya, which means dream in Ukrainian, was built during the time of the Soviet Union in 1988 as an attempt at building a space shuttle called Buran. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Buran program was shut down and the plane was left on the territory of independent Ukraine.
The first round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine officials has happened in the Belarusian city of Komal on Monday, February the 28th. 4 days after Russia has invaded Ukraine, the biggest assault on the European state since World War II. The talks between Russia and Ukraine come after Russia facing deepening economic isolations from Western sanctions, and also after Russian forces seized 2 small cities in the southeastern Ukraine and the area around the nuclear power plant. The talks held on the Belarus border with a strong Russian ally Belarus, which was become a launchpad for the invading Russian troops.
So far, no tangible result between the Kyiv-Moscow negotiations that happened on Monday. The delegations of the two parties will return to their capitals for consultations. Delegates found topics that they could agree upon next time on the Belarus-Poland border after consultations. The second round of talks between Russia and Ukraine will take place in 2 days. Before the meeting, Ukraine's President Zelensky has urged Russian troops to lay down their weapons and called for immediate EU membership. A rare emergency session of the UN General Assembly has begun with a demand from the Secretary General for an immediate ceasefire. Talks began with the aim of immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian forces, the Ukrainian President's office has said, after a Russian advance that has gone more slowly than some expected. The Western-led response to the invasion has been emphatic, with sanctions that effectively cut off Moscow's major financial institutions from Western markets. Russia's ruble currency has plunged 30% against the dollar on Monday. Countries also stepped up weapon supplies to Ukraine. Civilian death toll now stands at 352 people, including 14 children, Ukraine's health ministry says. Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich helps Ukraine negotiate for peace. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, who owns England Chelsea Football Club, has accepted a Ukrainian request to help negotiate an end to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, his spokeswoman says.
Additional German Navy ships left the northern part of Kiev on Monday, February 28th, to reinforce NATO's northern flank of alliance members rallying defence of Ukraine. The mine-hunting boats Salzburg, Rosenberg and Hamburg, the minesweeping Cyberg and the tender Elbe depart for the Baltic Sea on Monday. The departing vessels follow the corvette Ephra and the fleet service boat Alistair and left on Sunday under the motto, "Not on our watch." The ship's departure coincides with the policy shift that means Germany will now supply Ukraine with defence anti-tank weapons, surface-to-air missiles and ammunition. After facing criticism for refusing to send weapons to Kyiv, unlike other Western allies, Chancellor Olaf Scholz from Berlin will supply Ukraine with 1,000 anti-tank weapons and 500 Stinger surface-to-air missiles from Budweiser stocks. Germany has a long-standing policy of not exporting weapons to war zones. Rooted party is the bloodiest 20th century history of resulting pacifism. Countries aiming to pass on German weapons exports need to apply for approval in Berlin first. "12 Russian diplomats at the United Nations over the national security concerns were expelled," the US and the Russian diplomats have said on Monday.
Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia has told reporters the diplomats had been asked to leave by March 7th. He has said Russia would respond to the move because it is diplomatic practice. Nebenzia then raised the issue at the start of a United Nations Security Council meeting on the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, describing the U.S. move as hostile and a violation of its commitments as host of the UN headquarters in New York. U.S. Deputy UN Ambassador Richard Mills has responded, "Those diplomats that have been asked to leave the United States were engaged in activities that were not in accordance with their responsibilities and obligations as diplomats." Mills has has also said that they had been asked to leave so they do not harm the national security of the host country, adding that the decision was taken in full accordance with the UN headquarters agreement. The US and its allies have already slapped sweeping economic sanctions on Moscow for its attack on Ukraine, the biggest assault on a European state since World War II, and moved to ramp up military and other assistance.
So they do not harm the national.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Tuesday, the 1st of March.
Footage of burned-out military vehicles can be seen still smoldering on the streets of Bucha, Ukraine. The video shows Mayor Anatoly Fedoruk addressing residents from the scene of the damaged vehicles on Vokzalna Street. Others can be seen filming the destruction on their mobile phones. Earlier on Sunday, Anton Herashenko, an advisor to Ukraine's Interior Ministry, has said fighting was underway in Bucha with Russian forces that were trying to advance towards Kyiv.
At least 150,000 Ukrainians are seeking refuge in neighboring countries, said a United Nations official on Saturday as the military conflict between Russia and Ukraine dragged into the third day. At least 150,000 people have fled. They are refugees outside of Ukraine. Probably a much larger number have been displaced inside Ukraine, said Jong-Ah Jenny Williams, a spokeswoman for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, noting that the situation is changing minute by minute. The main destination of the refugees are Poland and Moldova, and some people choose Hungary and Romania. At least 100,000 people have entered Poland from Ukraine since the conflict began on Thursday. Most of the Ukrainians intend to seek help from relatives and friends, and some people are in 9 resettlement centers on the Poland-Ukraine border where they can seek help, meals, medical care, and a place to stay. The UNHCR spokeswoman has also said that governments in neighboring countries have not only opened their doors to accept refugees, but also established community centers to try to help separated families reconnect.
And more than 100,000 people protested in solidarity in Ukraine in Berlin on Sunday, February the 27th, calling for the end of Russian invasion and saying history should not repeat itself. Train and underground services were interrupted in some parts of German capitals as thousands made their way to Brandenburg Gate on central Berlin near Russian embassy. The crowd and protesters bearing signs reading, "Stop the war, Putin's last war, and we stand with Ukraine," along with Ukrainians and European Union flags. The protest comes as Russians attack Ukraine entered its 4th day, triggering 3 sanctions packages from Germany as its Western allies and pushing Berlin to shift its decades-long policy and not exporting arms to conflict zones. Now for a look at the news making international headlines Wednesday the 2nd of March.
A massive forest fire broke out in the city of Valparaiso, Chile, a South American country. It started Monday, February 28. A red alert was issued to contain the fire on Wednesday, which has spread over 70 hectares. Firefighters in the area are trying to get the fire under control.
An attack by Russian forces on television tower in Kyiv has killed 5 people. The Ukraine emergency services have confirmed on Tuesday, March 1st. A footage shows the moment the projectile hits the tower before engulfing in flames and black smoke rises. Earlier, Russian defense minister has said it was planning to strike communications and intelligence sites in the capital that he said that were being used for information attacks.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged the European Union on Tuesday, March 1st, via video link to an emergency session of the European Parliament to prove that you are with us in Ukraine's war with Russia, a day after Kyiv has officially asked to join the bloc. European Union lawmakers, many wearing Stand With Ukraine t-shirts bearing the Ukrainian flags, others with blue and yellow scarves or ribbons, gave Zelensky a standing ovation. Do prove that you are with us. Do prove that you will not let us go. Do prove that you are indeed Europeans, and then life will win over death, and light will win over darkness, Zelensky has said. The Ukrainian president spoke emotionally about Russian attacks on Ukraine's second-largest city of Kharkiv. Imagine in the morning, 2 cruise missiles hit Freedom Square, dozens of victims. This is the price of freedom, he has said. Zelensky has remained in Kyiv to rally his people against the invasion. As he spoke on Tuesday, a Russian armored column was bearing down on Ukraine's capital.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favourite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
Prime Minister Hun Sen urged Asian chiefs of national police currently in Cambodia for the Asian Pole Conference to share information, experiences, strengths, ties, increases regional security to ensure that ASEAN is free of terrorism. He has made an appeal while meeting with Asian chiefs of police at the Peace Palace on Thursday morning. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed satisfaction over the work of the ASEAN Chiefs of National Police and expressed his desire for all police delegation members to act as ambassadors to expand relations between ASEAN member states and boost trade between countries in the region. The assistant of the Prime Minister, Ieng Sopalet, told reporters after the meeting that the Prime Minister encourages all ASEAN APOL members to increase cooperation and, in particular, to prevent any acts of terrorism, to turn ASEAN into a zero-terrorism region. The visiting ASEAN chiefs of national police accepted the Prime Minister's recommendation and stated that they would individually make efforts to transform the ASEAN region into a zone of cooperation, harmony, peace, and stability. In more recent years, the problem of terrorism has increased in complexity and thus poses a greater threat to communities around the world, including the ASEAN region. The growth of the internet and social media has resulted in a wide network of global and regional groups, as well as new models of extremists. ASEAN has adopted and implemented the ASEAN Convention on Counter-Terrorism and the ASEAN Comprehensive Action Plan on Counter-Terrorism since 2013. Cambodia assumed the rotating chairmanship of ASEAN on 1 January 2022. On Wednesday, 2 March, the 40th ASEAN APOL Conference was held at the Soka Residence Hotel in Phnom Penh under the theme of Promoting Harmonization, Sustainable Peace and Stability. Darshana Goshen, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen met the Asian Pacific Program Director and Executive Member of the World Economic Forum, Chun Lee, at the Peace Palace on Thursday morning, where he expressed the views of the non-concentrated investment concept, 1+, in which neighbouring countries can help solve the problems faced one country in crisis and also help provide replacement work to maintain the supply of goods. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more.
While meeting with Ju Ok Lee, the Asia Pacific Program Director and Executive Member of the World Economic Forum, Prime Minister Hun Sen introduced the 1+ investment concept to the Regional Program Director and also drew his attention to the development of the digital sector. Ju Ok Lee congratulated Cambodia on its great development and also said that if there was no outbreak of COVID-19, Cambodia would have grown even more. He confirmed to the Prime Minister that the World Economic Forum will be held in June 2022 and accepted Prime Minister Hun Sen's recommendations to include the concept of this meeting. The World Economic Forum is an international non-governmental lobbying organization based in Cologne, Geneva, Switzerland, and it was founded on January 24, 1971 by German engineer and economist Klaus Schwab. Most of the WEF's funding comes from its 1,000 members companies, which generate more than $5 billion in public subsidies for their missions of improving the state of the world with the participation of business, politics, education, and social leaders to get the global, regional, and industrial agenda. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Cambodian Mine Action and Victim Assistance Authority plans to declare 7 provinces in the cities of Cambodia, including Phnom Penh, to be mine-free by 2022, after declaring Kep as the first mine-free province in the country. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more details.
The dissemination of the results of the study on mine action and sustainable development in Cambodia was jointly organized by the Mine Authority and the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Mine Action on Wednesday, March 3rd. The first deputy head of the Mine Authority, Senior Minister Lee Tuch, outlined plans to declare 7 more provinces and municipalities to be mine-free in Cambodia. The 7 provinces include Phnom Penh, Prey Veng, Kondal, Kampong Cham, Sihanoukville, Ratnakiri, and Takao. The senior minister also mentioned the fourth phase of the demining project in collaboration with the Cambodian Mine Action Center to clear mines in Battambang province. He expressed support for this project because Battambang is a province rich in mines and unexploded ordnances due to being a prominent battlefield during the war. He further encouraged the extension of this project to other provinces such as Pailan. On February 28, 2022, Kai province was officially declared as the first province in Cambodia to be mine-free after the royal government cleared all mines from the land with the financial support of Norway and Hungary and the Cambodian Mine Action Center acting as the primary deminers. Demining efforts still need to be carried out in mine-affected provinces such as Prey Veng, Kanda, Phnom Penh, Kampong Cham, Sihanoukville, Ratnakiri, and Takao. Dekanin, EAC News.
141 countries, including Cambodia, have voted in favour of the UN General Assembly resolution calling for an end for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The resolution calls for Russia to immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine with its internationally recognised borders. The majority of UN states voted in favour of the resolution, with the except of 5 voted against and 35 absentees. The vote on the resolution that closed a rare special emergency session of the General Assembly, which began on Monday, and nations took the stage to declare the position on the crisis. I joined member states in expressing concern about reports of attacks on civil facilities such as residences, schools and hospitals, and civilian casualties, including women, older persons, persons with disabilities and children, said UN General Assembly President Abdullah Shahid. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told reporters after the General Assembly session concluded that the United Nations has an obligation to stand by the voted resolution and lead by its call.
The message of the General Assembly is loud and clear. End hostilities in Ukraine now. Silence the guns now. Open the door to dialogue and diplomacy now. The territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine must be respected in line with UN Charter. We don't have a moment to lose.
The 5 countries that voted against the resolution was Belarus, North Korea, Italy, Russia and Syria. The Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation issued a statement on Wednesday, reaffirming Cambodia's position regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, saying that above all, Cambodia believes all member states must respect their sovereignty, territorial integrity and political independence of other member states. During the special emergency session of General Assembly, Cambodia expressed concern over the escalating situation and the worsening humanitarian conditions caused by the ongoing military hostilities in Ukraine. On Thursday, 24th of February, Russia launched a major offensive against Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin justified this action by saying there was an urgent need for Russia to launch a military operation to determinize Ukraine in order to protect the Donbas Republic and ensure that Russia will not be under NATO threat from Ukrainian territory. The US-led West has responded by the offensive by imposing new sanctions on Russia, and they're also preparing weapons to support Ukrainian forces. 141 in favour. North Korea, Syria, Belarus, Eritrea vote for Russia. 35 abstain, including China, Iran, India, South Africa, Israel among the 96 co-sponsors after keeping low profile. The UN General Assembly has voted overwhelmingly on Wednesday to adopt a resolution commending Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In the 193-member body, demand Moscow immediately withdraw its forces from the soil and sovereign neighbour.
Mr. President, today we call on Russia to stop its unprovoked, unjustified, unconscionable war.
For the first time in 40 years, the Security Council has convened an emergency special session of the General Assembly, United States Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield has said. The final tally of the vote on the resolution entitled Aggression Against Ukraine was 141-5, with 35 abstentions. The only countries that voted against the resolution alongside Russia were Syria, North Korea, Belarus, and Eritrea, a powerful indication of the international isolation that Russian President Vladimir Putin faces for invading his country's smaller neighbor. Among those that abstained were China, India, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, and South Africa. Unlike Security Council resolutions, General Assembly resolutions are not legally binding, but they do have clout in reflecting international opinion. After Russia vetoed a similar, albeit legally binding, resolution in the Security Council on 25 February, Ukraine and its supporters won approval for an emergency special session, the first since 1997, to try to spotlight opposition to Russia's invasion. What unfolded was over 2 days of speeches that began on Monday, in which more than 110 countries' representatives took to the plenary podium to sound off on the invasion of Ukraine. Israel also was among the 96 countries that co-sponsored Wednesday's resolution, a step it refused to take last week when a similar resolution came before the Security Council. That decision led U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, to express her disappointment to the Israeli UN Ambassador, Gilad Erdan. Since tensions between Russia and Ukraine began escalating, Israel has sought to avoid aligning too closely with either side. It is one of the few countries that maintains relatively warm relations with both Ukraine, a fellow Western democracy, and Russia, which controls the airspace over Syria, in which Israel operates to target Iranian proxies. The UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to demand that Russia immediately stops using force against Ukraine. It wants Russia to withdraw its military from the country. The measures also called on Russia to reverse a decision to recognize 2 separatist parts of eastern Ukraine as independent. As results of the vote came in, UN delegates in the General Assembly chamber rose to their feet and applauded, drowning out the speaker announcing the final tally.
The result.
The King of Cambodia, His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni, and Her Majesty the Queen Mother of Cambodia departed to China on Friday for a health checkup. Their special flight left Phnom Penh International Airport around 9 a.m. on Friday morning. According to his official Facebook page, Prime Minister Hun Sen wished His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni and the Queen Mother great power, wisdom, good health and longevity, and to watch over the people and live in peace forever. Prime Minister Hun Sen was at the airport for a proper send-off for the King and Queen Mother this morning. During their absence, the President of the Senate, Say Chom, will act as the acting head of state until their return to Cambodia. The King and Queen Mother visit China for health checkups at least twice a year. Prime Minister Hun Sen reaffirmed his decision to vote in favour of the UN General Assembly resolution with the demand that Russia immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw all its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders. He stated that the decision was made to protect the truth and so that Cambodia would continue being a responsible member of the United Nations. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more details.
According to the official Facebook page of the Cambodia government spokesperson unit, Prime Minister Hun Sen sent a message to the leaders of the Standing Committee of the party, the Standing Committee of the government, as well as members of the royal government on Wednesday night, saying that the situation in Ukraine is worsening and civilian deaths are increasing while the UN General Assembly is processing. The Prime Minister said he believes that Cambodia should act in the situation both on the behalf of ASEAN and Cambodia itself. He said, within the framework of ASEAN, we are in discussions with other ASEAN members to issue a statement calling for a ceasefire, because without a ceasefire, human life and property will continue to die and be destroyed. He continued, we must decide to call for a ceasefire or negotiations cannot move forward. This is one of the desirable solutions on behalf of ASEAN. The Prime Minister further stated that he hopes that Russia will understand because what Russia has done recently is against Cambodian policy on foreign affairs, as the country condemns separatism and the use of force on others. He said, of course Russia will be angry with us, but as a sovereign state, we have the right to act to defend the truth, and we also have a responsibility as a member of the United Nations.
Resolution ES-11/1 passed today with the support of 141 member states. It reflects the international community's grave concerns about the ongoing situation in Ukraine and reiterates the call for an immediate ceasefire.
On Wednesday night, Cambodia joined 140 other UN member states to vote in favor of the UN General Assembly resolution demanding that Russia immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. In a statement issued on Thursday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation said that during the voting process, Cambodia expressed concern over the escalating situation and the worsening humanitarian conditions caused by the ongoing military hostilities in Ukraine. Cambodia believes in dialogue and diplomacy to prevent the current situation from spiraling out of control and wishes to seek a peaceful solution in accordance with the international law and the principles of the UN Charter. Cambodia's official stance on the situation is that all member states must respect the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of other member states. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The US Ambassador to Cambodia, Patrick Murphy, congratulated Cambodia for joining 140 other UN member states to vote in favour of the UN General Assembly resolution calling after Russia to stop the war and withdraw troops from Ukraine. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has further details.
Ambassador Patrick Murphy wrote on his Twitter account on Thursday, March 3rd, saying it was excellent to see Cambodia and Singapore join the US and many others in co-sponsoring a UN resolution that most ASEAN nations supported, deploying Russian aggression and demanding an end to its unprovoked war against Ukraine. The world is taking action to hold Russia accountable. On Wednesday night, Cambodia joined 140 other countries to vote in favor of the UN General Assembly resolution demanding that Russia immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that he hopes that Russia will understand this decision because what Russia has done in the recent past is against Cambodian policy on foreign affairs, as the country condemns separatism and the use of force on others. He said, of course, Russia will be angry with us, but as a sovereign state, we have the right to act to defend the truth, and we also have responsibility as a member of the United Nations. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Asian foreign ministers released a statement on Thursday afternoon calling for a ceasefire in Ukraine. The statement included the foreign ministers are deeply troubled by the dangerous escalation in the Russian-Ukraine war, which could lead to further blown humanitarian crisis. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has more details.
The ASEAN foreign ministers have stated that they call for an immediate ceasefire or armistice and continuation of political dialogues that would lead to sustainable peace in Ukraine. They continued to state, "We underline the importance of a ceasefire to create an enabling environment for negotiations to address the current crisis and avoid expanding suffering of innocent people, confront the issue by calling an immediate ceasefire or armistice and continuation of political dialogues that would lead to sustainable peace in Ukraine." The statement reiterates that ASEAN stands ready to facilitate in any possible way peaceful dialogue among all concerned parties. On Thursday, 24th February, Russia launched a major offense against Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin justified this action by saying there was an urgent need for Russia to launch a military operation to demilitarize Ukraine in order to protect the Donbas Republic and to ensure that Russia will not be under NATO threat from Ukrainian territory. The US-led West has responded to the offensive by imposing new sanctions on Russia and are also preparing weapons in support of Ukrainian forces. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Royal Government has put into place a strategic plan to develop garment, footwear and bag sector in Cambodia between 2021 and 24, which will ensure long-term stability of the sector to help attract investors in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
During a work meeting between the President of the Garment Manufacturers Association of Cambodia, Kong San, and the Minister of Labour and Vocational Training at Samhain, held on Thursday morning at the Office of the Minister of Labour, Minister Samhain said that the field of employment and vocational training is considered a main priority under the strategic framework for the development of garment, footwear, and bag sector. The government has set out a strategy to develop this sector between 2021 to 2024, which will ensure the sector's long-term sustainability and continued growth, as well as attract more investors to Cambodia. The Minister of Labour further stressed that the members of the GMAC, which has factories and enterprises doing businesses in this sector, must diligently implement the standard operating procedures to maintain the production chain and keep jobs for workers particularly during the rise of COVID-19 cases. The minister encouraged a peaceful community among all garment, footwear, and bag factories, enterprises, and establishments, urging for the enhancement of good relations and continued understanding between employers and workers for the common benefit of all. Dekanin, EAC News.
Kiev residence-based men and women has showed up on Monday, February the 28th at the local civil territory defence centres to sign up to receive arms days after Russia has invaded their country.
The United States expects Russian forces to try to encircle Kiev in the coming days and could become more aggressive out of frustration with their slow advance on the Ukrainian capital, a senior U.S. defense official has said on Monday. Russian artillery has bombarded residential districts of Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, on Monday, killing possibly dozens of people, Ukrainian officials have said, as Moscow's invading forces met stiff resistance from Ukrainians on the fifth day of conflict.
Americans should not be worried about the nuclear war, US President Joe Biden has said on Monday, February 28th, the day after Russian President Vladimir Putin put Russia's nuclear deterrent on high alert amid Moscow's ongoing invasion of Ukraine.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said on Monday, Americans should not worry about a nuclear war after Moscow put its nuclear deterrent on high alert amid a barrage of Western reprisals over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. White House officials have said earlier in the day the United States sees no reason to change its nuclear alert levels at this time. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has said. But it's also important to remember that even over the course of the last several months and years, when we had significant disagreements with Russia over a range of issues, Russia and the United States have long agreed that nuclear use would have devastating consequences and have stated many times, including earlier this year, that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought, she has said in response to a question. Throughout the crisis, Russia and President Putin has falsely alleged that it is under threat, including from Ukraine, including from NATO, she has noted. Neither the United States nor NATO has any desire or intention for conflict with Russia, and we think provocative rhetoric like this regarding nuclear weapons is dangerous, adds to the risk of miscalculation, should be avoided, and will not indulge in it, Psaki has further said. What President Putin did are not actions of a global leader that should be treated with respect on the global stage, Psaki has also remarked. Senator John Hens, a combat veteran and member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, slammed Putin for his comments on nuclear weapons. This would be a catastrophe and it would be the end of the Russian Federation. This type of action going to the nuclear war would absolutely not be tolerated by anyone around this globe. Vladimir Putin has gone a step too far making these threats. Senator Jim Inhofe, ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, in a statement called on Putin to walk back his threats to go nuclear and to end this war for which he is solely responsible. The world has witnessed the lengths Putin is willing to go to get what he wants. Apartment buildings hit by missiles, civilians indiscriminately killed, Ukrainians taking to subway tunnels as makeshift bomb shelters, and desperate mother with small children fleeing major cities in the bitter cold of Ukrainian winter. The Russian president's senseless decision to invade Ukraine and bring horrific devastation to his people wasn't evidence enough. Putin's attempt at nuclear blackmail illuminates the truly threatening nature of his regime. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has announced on Tuesday night's State of the Union that the U.S. is banning Russian aircraft from U.S. airspace, joining a growing number of countries who are closing their skies to Russia following President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered Sunday, February 27th, his military command to put Russia's defense forces and reference to units which include nuclear arms on high alert citing aggressive statements by NATO leaders and economic sanctions against Moscow.
Russia's Vladimir Putin signals escalation as he puts Russia's nuclear forces on high alert. Putin says not only do Western countries take unfriendly measures against Russia in an economic dimension, mentioning the recent sanctions, but he says the top officials of leading NATO countries have also made aggressive statements about his country, Russia. Putin explained that this is why he has ordered the defense minister and chief of the general staff to put the Russian army's nuclear deterrence forces on high combat alert. The United States has said Putin was escalating the war with dangerous rhetoric, amid signs that the biggest assault on a European state since World War II was not producing rapid victories, but instead generating a far-reaching and concerted Western response. Less than 4 days after it started, the invasion has triggered a Western political, strategic, economic, and corporate response unprecedented in its extent and coordination. With this war on Ukraine, the world will never be the same again, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has stated. Borrell added that it is now more than ever the time for societies and alliances to come together to build the future on trust, justice, and freedom. It is the moment to stand up and to speak out. The 27-nation European Union on Sunday decided for the first time in its history to supply weapons to a country at war. It would send 450 million euros, roughly $507 million, of weaponry to Ukraine. Borrell at a news conference also said the EU's support would include providing fighter jets. The European Union's chief executive, Ursula von der Leyen, has expressed support for Ukraine's membership in an interview with Euronews, saying they are one of us. Ukraine, a democratic nation of 44 million people, won independence from Moscow in 1991 at the fall of the Soviet Union, and has pushed to join the NATO Western Military Alliance and the EU, both goals which Russia vehemently opposes.
The White House has announced on Monday that President Joe Biden will play a host in a special summit between the United States and the leaders of the Southeast Asian nations on the 28th to 29th of March in Washington, D.C. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
The summit, which is part of U.S. efforts to step up engagement with a region Washington sees as critical to its efforts to push back against China's growing power, was initially planned to be held earlier in the year, but scheduling was delayed by COVID-19 concerns. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has said the ASEAN summit will commemorate 45 years of U.S.-ASEAN relations. She said, "It is a top priority for the Biden-Harris administration to serve as a strong, reliable partner and to strengthen an empowered and unified ASEAN to address the challenges of our time," when announcing the news of the summit. On a visit to Malaysia in December, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the 10-member ASEAN bloc was essential to the architecture of the Indo-Pacific region. He also mentioned that the summit was expected to discuss the crisis caused by last year's military takeover in Myanmar and issues such as pandemic recovery, climate change, investment, and infrastructure. The Biden administration has declared the Indo-Pacific and competition with China its principal foreign policy focus, which it is keen to maintain despite the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Biden joined ASEAN leaders in a virtual summit in October, which was the first time in 4 years Washington had engaged at top level with the ASEAN bloc. President Biden has pledged to stand with ASEAN in defending freedom of the seas and democracy, and has said Washington would start talks on developing a regional economic framework, something critics say U.S.-Asia strategy has lacked since his predecessor Donald Trump quit a regional trade pact. The Biden administration announced a 12-page strategy for the Indo-Pacific in early February, in which it vowed to commit more diplomatic and security resources to the region to counter what it sees as China's bid to create a regional sphere of influence and become the world's most influential power.
US President Joe Biden has sharply criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday and led a standing ovation to the embattled Ukraine people in the State of the Union speech that he rewrote and addressed Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world.
Putin was wrong. We were ready, Biden has said in his State of the Union address. Biden stood in the chamber of the House of Representatives for his first formal State of the Union speech, looking to reset his presidency after a first year in office marked by rapid economic growth and trillions of dollars in new programs, but beset by the highest inflation in 40 years and a lingering coronavirus pandemic. The annual speech to Congress gave Biden a platform to highlight his agenda, reassure fretful Americans, and seek to boost his sluggish poll numbers amid the warnings his fellow Democrats could face losses in November congressional elections. Biden's challenge was to show Americans he is on top of the West's response to the most tense period in relations with Russia since the Cold War ended 30 years ago. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has tested Biden's ability to respond rapidly onto events without sending American forces into battle. The crisis has forced Biden to reshape this speech to focus on uniting Americans around a global effort to punish Moscow and support Kiev. Biden has said Putin ignored efforts to prevent war. In a show of support for Ukraine, First Lady Jill Biden had as her guest of the speech the Ukraine ambassador to the United States, Oksana Markarova, who traveled in the Biden motorcade from the White House to Capitol Hill.
She's bright, she's strong, and she's resolved.
Ambassadors of United Nations Conference on the Disarmament have condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine and stressed the dangers of poised nuclear weapons.
Comments came after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that if a Third World War were to take place, it would involve nuclear weapons and be destructive. These comments came after Moscow puts its nuclear deterrent on high alert amid a barrage of Western reprisals over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In the last week, Ukraine has suffered horrific attacks. Missiles and airstrikes have torn through apartment blocks. Innocent people, including children, have lost their lives, and the Ukrainian people have endured widespread suffering. The invading Russian armed forces have bombarded civilian targets, including residential areas. They are responsible for hundreds of civilian casualties, including growing numbers of children. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, Russia has a particular responsibility to uphold international peace and security. Instead, it is violating the borders of another sovereign country and repudiating the principles that every country has committed to uphold. It is now vital that Russia urgently de-escalates and withdraws its troops. It must be held accountable and stop undermining democracy, global stability, and international law. The United Kingdom and its international partners stand united in condemning the Russian government's reprehensible actions, which are in egregious violation of international law and the United Nations Charter and show flagrant disregard for its commitments under the Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk Agreements. In a speech, Japan's ambassador to the UN's conference on disarmament being held in Geneva said his country knows about the catastrophic use of atomic bombs, referring to the nuclear bombing by the United States on the cities of Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of the Second World War. Germany said Russia had in the past agreed that a nuclear war should never be fought. The United States Acting Permanent Representative Aude France McCarman remarks to the Conference on Disarmament on the situation in Ukraine has stated the United States condemns this senseless war, which puts Putin on the wrong side of history. The United States reaffirms its unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its international recognized borders, extending to its territorial waters. President Biden has said neither the United States nor NATO has any desire or intention for conflict with Russia. Russia is not under threat from the United States or NATO. The provocative rhetoric regarding nuclear weapons is reckless, adds to the risk of miscalculation, and should be avoided. Russia and the United States affirmed less than a year ago that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. This was also affirmed earlier this year in concert with P5 partners, noting that nuclear use would have far-reaching consequences. The United States stands by that statement and will continue to support dialogue and negotiations to reduce nuclear risks, including through verifiable agreements to limit nuclear weapons. A situation like this is exactly why practical work to promote security, non-proliferation, and disarmament is critical, why the Conference on Disarmament exists.
Russia and Ukraine held their second round of peace talks on Thursday, which spurred a deal on humanitarian corridors where Kiev and Moscow agreed to plan safe corridors to evacuate civilians.
The Ukrainian delegation's agenda is to agree on an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian corridors to allow civilians to leave frontline communities, a Ukrainian presidential advisor, Mikhailo Podolyak, has said on Thursday. The Ukrainian delegation had arrived earlier in the day, while Russia's had come to the city on Wednesday. The head of the Russian delegation, Vladimir Medinsky, has told reporters on Wednesday that discussions would focus on issues related to a ceasefire and the need for a humanitarian corridor. We discussed our positions at our previous meetings. Russia put forward a number of initiatives related to an immediate ceasefire, he has said. The first round of talks between Russia and Ukraine was held on Monday with no concrete results after discussions that lasted for about 5 hours. Both sides, however, agreed to hold a second round of negotiations to achieve a ceasefire. Over 2,000 civilians have been killed since Russia launched its war on Ukraine on February 24, according to Ukrainian authorities, while the UN Refugee Agency estimates more than 874,000 people have fled to neighboring countries.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Wednesday, the 2nd of March, has declined to comment on whether sanctions will be imposed on the Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich. He has said that vice was tightening on those around the Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has told Parliament that it is not appropriate for him to comment on individual cases at this stage when asked by Labour leader Keir Starmer why Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea Soccer Club, was not facing sanctions. Be in no doubt that the actions that the British government have already taken are having an effect on Moscow by exposing the ownership of properties of companies, the Prime Minister has added. The vice is tightening on the Putin regime, and it will continue to tighten. Johnson has also said he believes the actions of Putin towards Ukraine already qualified as a war crime. What we have seen already from Vladimir Putin's regime in the use of the munitions that have already been dropping on innocent civilians, in my view, already fully qualifies as a war crime, Johnson told Parliament after being asked by Ian Blackford, the leader of the Scottish National Party, about supporting the International Criminal Court, prosecution of the Russian president's crimes of aggression against the peoples of Ukraine. At the start of Prime Minister's question time session, Ukraine's ambassador to Britain has received a standing ovation from lawmakers in the House of Commons, who applauded him as he watched proceedings from the public gallery.
Today, the Disasters and Emergency Committee is launching its Ukraine appeal, and every pound donated by the British people will be matched by the government, starting with £20 million.
Mr. Speaker, Roman Abramovich is the owner of Chelsea Football Club and various other high-value assets in the United Kingdom. He's a person of interest to the Home Office because of his links to the Russian state and his public association with corrupt activity and practices. Last week, the Prime Minister said that Abramovich is facing sanctions. He later corrected the record to say that he isn't. Well, why on earth isn't he?
The United Nations Security Council on Sunday, the February 27th, have called for a rare emergency special meeting for 193 member General Assembly on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which will be held on Monday the 28th, for a briefing on humanitarian needs and civilians in Ukraine. Requested by France, United States, Britain, Norway, Albania, Ireland, and Mexico. It will be the 5th meeting for the Council of Ukraine in the past weeks as the Western allies step up the diplomatic campaign to isolate Moscow. US Ambassador for the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield says for the first time in decades, the Security Council has called for an emergency special session in the General Assembly. The Council members who have supported the resolution have recognised that this is no ordinary movement. Members have need to take extraordinary actions to meet this threat and international system and do everything they can to help Ukraine and its people. The United States envoy to the United Nations have urged Russia to tone down its dangerous rhetoric regarding nuclear weapons.
It is extremely alarming that the Russian president has resorted today to open nuclear blackmail. The world must take this threat very seriously.
Well, first of all, we sincerely believe that the Russian atrocities in Ukraine mount to violation of many, many international treaties, including the one that we cite when we sent our request to the court.
The vote by the 15-member council was procedural, so Russia could not word its veto. A resolution convening the General Assembly session was adopted with 11 yes votes. Russia voted no, while China, India and United Arab Emirates have abstained. The move is the latest in a flurry of diplomacy at the United Nations in New York. It follows a Russian veto on Friday of the draft council resolution that would have deplored Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. China, India and United Arab Emirates have abstained and the remaining 11 members voted yes. The General Assembly is expected to vote on a similar resolution as soon as Wednesday. US Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield has announced during the meet to the press on Sunday, no country has a veto in the General Assembly. While General Assembly resolutions are non-binding, they carry political weight. The United States and allies see action and United Nations as a chance to show Russia it is isolated because of the invasion of the neighbouring Ukraine. They'll be looking to improve on the 100 countries to vote in favour of the General Assembly resolution in March 2014 after Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimea region. The resolution declared invalid referendum on the status of Crimea. The vote will become at the end of emergency special session. It will be only the 11th such General Assembly sessions convened since 1950. Russia would be in a position to block the move if it chooses. It is the Council veto power along with the United States, France, Britain and China. Now look at all the news making international headlines this Thursday, 3rd of March.
A Kharkiv National University building and a police regional department were engulfed in flames on Wednesday, 2nd of March, following a Russian strike on Ukraine's second-largest city. Firefighters were seen battling the blaze as part of the university building has collapsed. It was not immediately clear if there were any casualties on the strike on the police station. At least 21 people were killed and 112 wounded in shelling in Ukraine's second-largest city in the last 24 hours, Regional Governor Oleg Senegovov has announced on Wednesday. The authorities have said Russian missile attacks hit the center of Kharkiv, including residential areas and the regional administration building.
2 Australian states were submerged in floodwater on Wednesday the 2nd of March, as tens of thousands of residents fled from their homes with torrential rains battering the country's east coast. A footage shows communities inundated in Queensland state, submerged vehicles and furniture floating down the streets were also seen. 13 people have been killed, the latest of 4 deaths recorded the worst hit town of Lismore in New South Wales. Since the extreme weather arrived late last week, submerging town centres, washing away homes and cutting power lines. More deaths were expected as police check houses and water rescue. State Premier Dominic Perrottet, who flew over the flooded towns on Wednesday, urged people in Sydney to evacuate if they have given an order by emergency crews. The wild storm Cassel has been making its way down from Queensland state into neighbouring New South Wales, and the rivers in Sydney are expected to start peaking on Wednesday evening.
Kharkiv region head Oleg Senegovov has said on Tuesday that Russian missile attacks hit the center of Ukraine's second-largest city, including residential areas and the regional administration building, as Moscow started day 6 of its invasion. Senegovov has said Russia launched Grad and cruise missiles on Kharkiv, but the city defense was holding on. Such attacks are the genocide of the Ukrainian people, a war crime against the civilian population, he has said. Rocket strikes on Kharkiv have killed at least 10 people and wounded 35, reports Ukrainian Interior Ministry advisor Anton Heroshenko. Similar strikes killed and wounded dozens in the city over the previous day. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has said the Kremlin would press its military operation in Ukraine until it achieves its goal. Shoigu has also said Moscow's main goal was protecting itself from threats created by the West, and added Russia was not occupying Ukraine's territory. Russia calls its actions in Ukraine a special operation that is not designed to occupy territory but to destroy its southern neighbor's military capabilities and capture what it regards as dangerous nationalists.
Now for the look at the news making international headlines Friday the 4th of March.
New Zealand police have moved on Wednesday, March 2, to end an anti-vaccine mandate protest that has disrupted the country's capital for the past 3 weeks, towing away cars and dismantling tents set up outside Parliament. Taking inspiration from truckers' demonstration in Canada, hundreds of protesters have been blocking streets with trucks, cars, and motorcycles in a protest that has led to violent clashes. Police have said 60 people were arrested during Wednesday's operation, and they had gained significant ground in efforts to clear the protesters. At least 3 officers were injured, police have reported. Protesters have used fire extinguishers, paint-filled projectiles, homemade plywood shields, and pitchforks as weapons, and a cord was set up as a tripwire, police said. Social media footage showed protesters throwing full water bottles and shouting abuse at the police. Authorities used loudspeakers to warn protesters they face arrest for trespassing on Parliament grounds if they refuse to leave. Pepper spray was used against some protesters. The protest began as a stand against COVID-19 vaccine mandates, but was later joined by groups calling for an end to all pandemic restrictions.
Russian Defense Ministry has released on Wednesday, March 2nd, a footage of the military helicopters supporting its troops during the Moscow special operations in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said on Tuesday that the Russian must stop bombing Ukraine cities before more talks could take place on Russia's invasion of the country. The latest Ukraine updates regarding the peace talks on Thursday between the two countries spur a deal on the humanitarian corridors. Kiev and Moscow agree on plan for safe corridors evacuate civilians.
The regional governor has confirmed 2 schools as well as private houses were hit.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favourite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
No international soccer matches will be played in Russia, and the Russian flag and anthem will be banned from any of the matches abroad, governing body FIFA has said Sunday, February the 27th. FIFA said on Sunday that Russia can continue to play matches, albeit on natural venues and only under the name Football Union of Russia, but warned that the country could be excluded from competitions if the situation in Ukraine does not improve. The announcements, which FIFA called immediate first measures, were however swiftly criticised in insubordination by a head of Polish Football Association. Russia is scheduled to host Poland in the semi-finals of its strand of the World Cup playoffs on March 24th, and if the team advances, it is scheduled to host either Sweden or Czech Republic on March 29th in the Path B final. Poland has said it would not play its Soccer World Cup qualifier against Russia next month following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Polish Football Association chief Sergej Kalazas criticised the FIFA stance and called the Russia to be expelled from the World Cup. Russian footballers and fans are not responsible for this, but we can't pretend that there's nothing happening. Today's FIFA decision is totally unacceptable. We are not interested in participating in this game of appearances. Our stance remains intact. Polish national team will not play with Russia, no matter what the name of the team is, he wrote on Twitter. If FIFA's human rights policy is more than just words on paper, now is the time to put it into effect, excluding the Russian Football Association from qualifying for the Qatar World Cup in 2022, he added in a statement. FIFA did not immediately respond to the request of comment of Poland's comment. FIFA is starting to feel the pressure from teams around the world standing beside Ukraine, refusing to play Russia. FIFA is not the only sporting code that has refused to play in Russia. One of Brazil's biggest derby matches was cancelled shortly after kick-off on Saturday, February the 26th, after the players from Grêmio were hurt when fans attacked their team bus on the way to the game, the city rivals International.
The match between the two main clubs in Porto Alegre is known as the Grenal, but Grêmio withdrew from the match at Inter's Beira Rio Stadium after rocks smashed through coach windows and hurt players. Grêmio released footage of midfielder Matias Valasanti being taken to hospital in an ambulance. It also showed footage of smashed windows and a rock bigger than a fist, it said to the Paraguayan player. Grêmio and Internacional said they repudiated the violence, adding that 2 suspects had been arrested. Grêmio later said Valasanti, who's 25, was being treated for a cerebral concussion and cranial trauma. He was also being treated for lacerations to the face and trauma in his hip and would spend the night in hospital for further observation. No fractures were reported. It was the second time in 3 days that a bus carrying a Brazilian team had been attacked on its way to a game after Bahia players were hit before Thursday night's match against Sampaio Corrêa in Salvador. The Porto Alegre incident also took place the same night that fans wielding metal bars invaded the pitch and attacked Parana players, forcing the suspension of their game against Unia Beltrão in Curitiba. With around 5 minutes to go in the state championship match, Parana was losing 3-1, a result that doomed them to relegation to the second division. Videos showed angry fans punching players who responded with kung fu kicks as other supporters poured onto the field to join the fighting. Both sets of players eventually managed to sprint to the dressing rooms as police fired percussion grenades and forced fans off the pitch.
Thanks for joining us. Ganyu Zhu, who will become China's first Formula One driver when he makes his debut next month, said he is not just a sport just to make up the numbers. The 22-year-old has signed for Alfa Romeo team alongside former Mercedes racer Valtteri Bottas and will become the first driver from the country of 1.4 billion to line up the grid in the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix on March 20th.
You know, I don't want to be in Formula One just for the sake of being here. I want to be here to be proving myself, to be making my country, making all the people support me proud. I want to do well in Formula One. To be that first one is definitely something very important. It's a little bit like Yao Ming for basketball, NBA, that when he shine in the NBA scenario, then there's people really into basketball, and basketball became a huge sport back home. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
With a reset because of the new regulations, I feel like there's no limits in a way. We shouldn't put any limits on what is our target, what we can do, what we can't do. So, and anything is possible, and that is exciting, and that's same for every team. But we as a team take it as an opportunity to make a good jump forward. I feel like it's going to be a bit more equal than it was before, also thanks to the budget cap and the changes in the cars. So I really think it's going to be good for Formula One, and it's going to be fun for the spectators, but fun for drivers and teams as well.
Zhu's love for motorsport began when he attended his home Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai as a 5-year-old in 2004, the first F1 race in his country. Their fan base in China has grown steadily since, but there is still a huge growth opportunity for the sport in what it sees a key market. Formula One in November extended its contract with the Chinese Grand Prix in 2025. The race will be absent from the calendar for the third year in a row due to the COVID-19 pandemic this season, but the sport has long waited 2 races in the country. Zhu, who was Renault-owned Alpine's test driver last year and a member of the Young Driver Academy, likened by himself to the NBA trailblazer Yao Ming. To be the first one is definitely something very important, he said. It's a little bit like Yao Ming for NBA. When he shined in the NBA scenario, basketball became a huge sport back home. That's what I'm trying to do now. Alfa Romeo became the last of the 10 teams to officially launch their 2022 car. Russian businessman Roman Abramovich said on Wednesday he would sell Chelsea Football Club, 19 years after buying it and selling the team on the path of sporting glory, and promised to donate the money for the sale to help the victims of the war in Ukraine.
To the Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Keir Starmer.
Amid growing calls for Abramovich to be hit by sanctions after Russia's invasion of its neighbour, the metals magnate said in a statement that a sale was in the best interest of the reigning European and World Soccer champions. In the current situation, I have therefore taken the decision to sell the club, as I believe this is in the best interest of the club, the fans, the employees, as well as the club sponsors and partners, he said. Abramovich said he would not ask for loans he has made to the Premier League club, reported to total £1.5 billion or $2 billion, to be repaid to him, and the sale would not be fast-tracked. He has told his aides to set up a charitable foundation that will receive all net proceeds from the sale. The foundation will be for the benefit of all victims of the war in Ukraine, Abramovich said in a statement. This includes providing critical funds toward the urgent and immediate needs of victims, as well as supporting the long-term work of recovery. Swiss business tycoon Hans-Jörg Wyss told a newspaper that he was considering buying Chelsea from Abramovich, who over the weekend said he was stepping back from running the club but made no mention of any plans to change its ownership. Abramovich, who is currently trying to sell all his villas in England, he also wants to get rid of Chelsea quickly now. I, along with 3 other people, received an offer on Tuesday to buy Chelsea from Abramovich. Blick quoted Wyss as saying in an interview published on Wednesday. Abramovich bought the West London club in 2003 for a reported £140 million, and his investment contributed hugely to the most successful era in the team's history, as they won 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, and the Champions League twice. His purchase of the club helped transform the landscape of English football, with Chelsea breaking the stranglehold of Manchester United, Arsenal, and Liverpool. They beat Brazilian side Palmeiras last month to become FIFA Club World Cup champions for the first time, having defeated Manchester City to become European champions last season. A seismic moment was how BBC presenter and former England striker Gary Lineker described the announcement ahead of coverage of Chelsea FA Cup 5th round tie at Luton Town. Chelsea fans at Kenilworth Road chanted the Russian's name before kickoff. Abramovich said that the decision to sell had been incredibly difficult. I hope that I will be able to visit Stamford Bridge one last time to say goodbye to all of you in person, he said. Abramovich turned his back on life in London in 2018 when the British government delayed renewing his visa following the attempted assassination of a former Russian double agent in England, which it blamed on Moscow. It has been a privilege of a lifetime to be part of Chelsea FC, and I am proud of all our joint achievements, he said. Chelsea Football Clubs and its supporters will always be in my heart.
Sawang is known as being the oldest sprinter in the Southeast Asian country and has participated 4 times in annual Thailand Masters Athlete Championships, particularly in the 100-metre dash, javelin and discus events. Sawang runs 100 metres in 27.8 seconds. What a champ.
Last weekend, at the championship 26th iteration held in southwestern Samut Songkhram province, he won all the gold medals in the 100 to 105 years category as he has outlived all rivals in that age range. Getting into sports made me strong and well. As well as this, exercising helps improve your appetite so you eat well too, Sawang says when asked about the secret to his longevity. Sawang's everyday routine includes daily walks with his 70-year-old daughter, Siripan, in simple house chores like sweeping up fallen leaves in their garden. But the centenarian ramped this up ahead of the games, training twice a day for a week at a local stadium with his daughter. My father always has positive thoughts, so he is in great mental health condition. In terms of physical health, he was gotten much stronger, Siripan says. The training paid off. Sawang's time for the 100-meter sprint this year was a personal best and new Thai record for his age group. Usain Bolt, who holds the only current world record, ran in it 9.58 seconds in 2009. As Thailand society ages, the number of participants in the senior category has grown, says Viwat Bigrantunurus, president of Asia Masters Athletics. When the Thailand Master Athletes Championships started in 1996, there were only about 300 participants. Today, there are over 2,000, their ages ranging from 35 to 102 years. As you can see, everybody who's here to compete has all forgotten about their ages. Once they forgot about their ages, they are happy, Viwat said.
Formula One will no longer race in Russia after sports terminated its contract with the promoter of the Russian Grand Prix, it said on Thursday, in response of the country's invasion of the neighbouring Ukraine.
The event, which was set to move to a new track outside St. Petersburg next year from its current Sochi Olympic Park venue, had a contract until 2025. The sport announced the cancellation of the 2022 race, originally scheduled for September 25th last week. Formula One can confirm it has terminated its contract with the Russian Grand Prix promoter, meaning Russia will not have a race in the future, a statement from the sport's commercial rights holder, which decides the calendar, said. Formula One's move to effectively pull out of Russia comes after the sport's governing body, the FIA, on Tuesday condemned the country's invasion of Ukraine, but said Russian and Belarusian drivers could still take part in its competitions in a neutral capacity. British Federation Motorsport UK on Wednesday banned Russian and Belarusian license holders from racing in the country regardless of the flag they compete under. Nikita Mazepin is the only Russian on the Formula One grid. The 22-year-old already faces an uncertain future after his US-owned Haas team removed all branding related to Russian potash producer and title sponsor Uralkali from its car on the final day of last week's Barcelona test. Uralkali is owned by Mazepin's father, oligarch Dmitry Mazepin, and the fate of the partnership and the Russians' continued presence at the team is set to be decided this week. The Russian Grand Prix joined the calendar in 2014. It has been attended by President Vladimir Putin in the past, with the Russian leader even handing out trophies on the podium. Russia launched an all-out invasion of Ukraine last week, with Belarus used as a key staging area.
A Vietnamese couple whose beloved dogs were culled last year while they were in COVID-19 quarantine hopes to get their personal trauma heartbroken by adopting sick and unwanted puppies.
Last October, during a major outbreak in Ho Chi Minh City, local laborer 50-year-old Pham Minh Hung and his wife Nguyen Thi Chi Em, who lived outside of the city, decided to leave and go to another province with their 15 dogs. But while on the road, the couple were found to be positive for COVID-19 and were bundled away to a quarantine facility. Authorities put down all their dogs just hours later. On the day they were taken away to quarantine, M said they found out from the internet that the authorities had killed all their dogs. She said it was so sad and she felt so helpless, heartbroken, and cried a lot from missing their dogs. Her husband comforted her and promised that they would raise other puppies. Vietnamese authorities have maintained that the dogs and other pets brought in by people who were quarantined for COVID-19 were killed out of concern that the animals could create unsanitary conditions and exacerbate the outbreak, especially since there was no one there to look after them. Local media has said the killings took place without authorities discussing or informing the owners, which has sparked anger across the country, as well as triggered an outpour of public sympathy and donations to the couple. In Vietnam, dogs are also a delicacy, and the couple spent most of their earnings saving dogs bound for slaughterhouses and restaurants before this unfortunate event took place. The couple also adopted sick dogs abandoned by their owners and gave them the medical treatment that they needed. The couple have now returned to their home in Long An province in southern Vietnam and are building up a new pack. They now have 7 dogs, which are mostly unwanted dogs from around their neighborhood, and are prepared to do everything possible to save them if their lives are endangered. We would go into hiding into the jungle if that would save them. I will see it through, M says. I won't let them be killed again because I cannot go through such heartbreak a second time. Vietnam has had more than 3 million COVID-19 infections since the start of the pandemic, as well as nearly 40,000 deaths.
To demonstrate the power of 5G connectivity edge computing, Spain's Telefónica has demonstrated a raft of innovative applications for the growing technology, including the humidification of vending machines and a robot bartender at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona.
The robot, developed by Mako Robotics, uses Telefónica's 5G technology to prepare and serve juice, wine, or cocktails to Congress attendees. It can reply in several languages when greeting customers, respond to their orders, and offer recommendations in the language that the customer has previously selected. The robot also uses facial recognition to remember and recognize people who return to order and offer drinks based on their previous orders. The hospitality robot named Kime uses computer vision cameras to allow the quality of the prepared product to be controlled in real time. Telefónica say the technology is scalable to serve people with more potential functionalities, always in real time, such as demographic characteristics of the users, capacity, waiting time in the queue, warnings for crowds, or identifying specific peaks of high demand or supply needs, among others. Telefónica has also demonstrated a Spot robot using its 5G technology. The advanced robots like Spot and low-latency 5G make them a perfect tool to help humans in dangerous situations. His objective is to act in situations where people are putting their lives at risk. We better send a robot that assesses the situation, a representative from Telefónica has said. The organizers of MWC hope to attract about 50,000 attendees to the Spanish city, making it one of the biggest physical events since the start of the pandemic. The event will run from 28th February to 3rd March.
Last weekend, Funky and FT Galleries celebrated the first edition of the Murals of the Cambodian Festival at the factory Phnom Penh. This festival unveiled 9 new larger-than-life murals painted by local and international artists from 8 different countries. The EAC News team went to the festival to explore the art and learn more about the event. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin will tell you more about it.
Canadian-born Cambodian Funky says he was exposed to many festivals throughout his life, which had a strong impact on his career as a painter, graffiti artist, and muralist. He said he wanted to create the Murals for Cambodia Festival as a platform for local and international artists to exchange and share their creativity. He says this festival has been a dream of his for 10 years and counting.
Yeah, we're super happy because for this first edition, it was like last minute, the country opened, so I made a few calls. Did a good partnership with Tiger because of the Year of the Tiger. And we have 10 artists actually lined up for the mural artists this year. And we penned like flat 5. So we have, for example, he's Kim San, who it's his first mural ever. Wow. But he's like a highly talented artist, Khmer artist who does oil painting, so rich. So it's cool also to do a variety of medium. Him to be exposed with, we have Tones who's Khmer, from Switzerland, but he's in our world of graffiti. He's a legend. He's just painted something for the Prince of Monaco recently, Foundation. He travels all around the world. And I say, hey, Bong, come back to the kingdom. It's blowing. We have a good playground. So we have him. We have Moy and Nap from Thailand. course, specialty is to paint animals. So that's why I'm like in the Croatian Year of the Tiger. I didn't want it to be too corporate, and that was cool when you have that thin line between branding and art. So it was a good partnership. It is a good partnership with Tiger and with our partners at Factory, at Urban Village. It's a good playground. So Moy and Map from MSV Crew from Thailand. We have Riza, another Khmer from Holland, who's decided to live here since the pandemic. He used to come every year. We have Mike YSK, who has a calligraphy, first calligrapher of who incorporates like sort of the Khmer script, but through calligraphy. And I know him since he's like 17 years old, 17 years ago. So he's the first born and raised generation of like street artists, and now he's a tattoo artist. We have Vanks, he's a all city, pure graffiti homie. We have, who else? We have JB Carraro, a good partner who did the whole logo. He's our partner in terms of graphism, the graphic design, the brand image of Murals for Cambodia, but he's a really dope artist from Cambodia based here. So even, you know, the logo, everything has to be a partnership and a touch of art to add some soul in it and not just hire you to do this or that, right? And we were supposed to have Imagine, the only one who couldn't make it because of COVID. She got trapped in Nepal, but she came 2 times already here. She's a legend and she does like Nepali scripts. She did a mural here already, but next time we'll do some more and we'll do a lot of festival mission.
Twun from Japan is also a featured artist. In addition to the murals, FT Gallery also has a new exhibition which officially opened during the weekend of the event. The 3 concerts that took place every night included artists such as 2M Dai, Sochita, Isame Siva, Nikki Nikki, Cash Rules, DJ Maritaj, and other artists from Clap Your Hands and Badamay Production, as well as a few independent artists. The fairgoers were invited to watch the muralists complete their works during the festival. There were also an open graffiti space where people could create their own graffiti. Dutch-born Cambodian artist Risa said that he always wanted to do a mural and was happy to join this festival when Funky asked.
So I had these drawings made like this big first, and Funky saw it, and yeah, he wanted to have, he liked it very much and he wanted to have it on the wall. What I hope the festival will do, I would hope that it brings a spotlight on the art scene and to bring it up a bit, you know, for the Cambodia art culture. I hope it would encourage the kids to yeah, create art and to show them it is possible to also make a living out of it, you know, just, yeah.
Kam San Soo, an artist who is an alumnus of the Royal University of Fine Arts and who created his art based on traditional dance and looking into the past, added that he was looking forward to learning about art from other artists.
Usually at the festival, people tend to have fun, but I also want them to have fun and learn about the art from each artist and has to show. Like street arts from international artists are different from local artists. I want to learn and think about it.
YSK Mike wanted the people to see that local artists' works are comparable to international artists. His work is a mix of English and Khmer calligraphy, with the meaning of his artwork spelling out the name of the festival, Murals for Cambodia. Taking a closer look, YSK Mike showed the details of how he combined the Khmer letter Ga and the English letter A. He hoped that fairgoers would be inspired by the various art on display. For JB Carraro, he created the graphic design for Murals for Cambodia. It felt natural to him to create a mixed media design on the wall. He hoped that people would have fun at the festival and have more appreciation for the local graffiti and street art scene. On the side of the festival performances, Sam from 2M Dai hoped the attendees would enjoy the good music and art and feel the synergy between the two. He also debuted his new song, Better Day, at the festival. Speaking with some artists from Clap Your Hands, Siva said he was happy to support his friend and see a connection between his music and the art showcase at the festival.
I hope people would see what our hip-hop culture is. I hope people would get to see also how it's traveled far into Cambodia and mixed with the arts and the culture of Cambodia as well.
Sachita was also excited to be back performing live.
This festival is a really open event for people to come and see the arts from other artists, like from Cambodia or maybe outside of Cambodia. It's just like an exhibition and a collection of good artworks from the artists. And second, like, you know what, it's like I'm really excited to like finally come back to do the live performance here, like, you know, to see the crowd of people. But of course, we have to stay safe. Yes.
People and animals alike enjoyed the open space of art and concert. Sreimir, a cafe owner, came to the festival to support her friend who is one of the artists. She hopes that the people will give more value to artists in Cambodia so that there will be more development in the arts field. She can see that there is more support and understanding now. Moni, a program manager at Impact Hub, added that this festival opens up a whole new culture and community in Cambodia.
So far, I think it's really fun, really engaging. Seen a lot of people in the community, a lot of common friends. So I would say a place that I feel really warm. And I've seen some of the mural. Looks great, looks amazing. Love the artists. One more thing is that the idea of coming here to support local artists is also something that drives me.
Funky and FT Gallery expressed excitement for the future of murals for Cambodia. After the festival, he is planning to visit a remote school with 25 students in Koh Kong to paint murals and hold workshops. He hopes to create a roadmap of tourism to find murals in Cambodia, as well as a documentary to showcase the beauty of the country. He said that he is hopeful that the community will take ownership of the murals when his team have left.
So the goal is to centralize, incubate art partners, brands, art lovers, collectors, and the people who loves art and loves to party in one place, and then decentralize the cultural attention that is like all in the capital, right? Because as you know, most of our country is the countryside. So I think the goal is really to redistribute, and also I think art is the best tool to create a bridge and break this barrier of social barriers and just show the beauty of Cambodia. Because once we'll go, for example, we go in Koh Kong right after this project, and it's to amplify also tourism in a different way, but through art, and try to inspire communities and be inspired by them, and vice versa. Yeah. We want to create a new narrative as our generation. This is a new era, with all due respect, and everybody who paved the way for our culture and everything that happened in the past. I think our generation, 80% is under 30 years old, I think, in Cambodia. So it's a way, art is the best tool, a medium. We're like the tool of the medium, like us artists. And I want the youth to take ownership of their narrative through this type of project and be inspired by it.
Funky and FT Gallery created the Murals for Cambodia Festival in partnership with the Japan Foundation Asia Center, Jean-Baptiste Carraro, the Factory Phnom Penh, Urban Village Phnom Penh, DOS MTN Cambodia, Elliott Events, B-Side, Clap Your Hands, and Badame Productions.
You can feel the bustling energy around here as the people appreciate the murals around the FT Gallery at the Factory Phnom Penh. Murals for Cambodia Festival is hoping to re-energize the street art appreciation. I'm Dekanin, EAC News.
And finally, David Matala, known as the Piano Man, is a 40-year-old Italian pianist who travelled from Germany to the Polish border to serenade the welcome of the Ukrainian refugees.
This isn't the first time the pianist has shown up to lift people's spirits in areas of conflict. He first became known as the Piano Man in Istanbul when he played his baby grand piano at Taksim Square while Turkish anti-government protesters and police clashed in 2013. He also traveled to Donetsk when the Russians occupied a government building in 2014 and played outside the Bataclan Theatre after the attacks in Paris in 2015. At the Polish border, he played Imagine by John Lennon on his signature piano on wheels with a white peace sign painted on its lid. He was joined at the keyboard by a Ukrainian woman to play We Are the Champions by Queen. Other refugees also sang along to his version of Volare by Gypsy Kings. Martello ultimately aims to promote peace through music.
Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect over the weekend. Thanks for watching the weekly Roundup here on EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the daily Roundup Monday night at 8 p.m. I'll see you then.